The city was alive, its streets pulsating with the rhythm of nightlife. Neon lights danced across the sky, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the wet pavement. The air was thick with the smell of rain, mixed with the distant aroma of street food and the hum of cars. It was a typical Friday night in the bustling metropolis, where the line between work and play blurred, and the pursuit of success often walked hand in hand with temptation. In a high-rise office building, nestled in the heart of the financial district, a group of professionals were wrapping up their day. Among them was Alex, a man in his mid-30s with a chiseled face and a charming smile. He worked as a marketing manager for a prestigious firm, and his career was on an upward trajectory. As he packed his belongings, his eyes met those of his boss, Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged man with a stern expression. Alex exchanged a courteous nod with him, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Alex's life seemed perfect on the surface. He was married to Rachel, a beautiful woman with long curly hair and bright green eyes. They had a young daughter, Emily, who was the center of their universe. Their home was a cozy suburban house, filled with laughter and the warmth of a loving family. However, beneath this idyllic facade, cracks were beginning to form. As Alex left the office, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. He had been acting strange lately, often distant and preoccupied. Rachel had noticed the change in him, but whenever she asked, he brushed it off, attributing it to work stress. The truth, however, was far more complicated. Alex had been having an affair with his boss's wife, Victoria, a seductive and manipulative woman who had a knack for getting what she wanted. The affair had started innocently enough, with a casual conversation at a company party. Victoria had been drawn to Alex's charm, and he, in turn, had been flattered by her attention. As their interactions became more frequent, the boundaries between them began to blur. They would meet in secret, exchanging flirtatious messages and stolen glances. The excitement of the forbidden affair was exhilarating, but it also came with a price. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of the deception began to bear down on Alex. He felt torn between his love for Rachel and his desire for Victoria. The guilt was eating away at him, but he couldn't seem to break free from Victoria's grasp. She was a master manipulator, using her charms to keep him ensnared. Alex found himself caught in a web of lies, unable to extricate himself without causing damage to his personal and professional life. Meanwhile, Rachel was growing increasingly suspicious. She had always been the intuitive type, and she could sense that something was off. She would often find Alex staring at his phone, his expression a mixture of guilt and longing. When she confronted him, he would deny any wrongdoing, but the seed of doubt had been planted. One night, as Alex was leaving the office, he received a message from Victoria, asking him to meet her at a hotel. He hesitated, feeling a pang of guilt, but his desire for her won out. As he made his way to the hotel, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being pulled into a vortex of destruction. The hotel room was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of perfume. Victoria was waiting for him, her eyes locked onto his with an unnerving intensity. They spent the night together, lost in their own world of passion and desire. But as the night wore on, Alex began to feel a growing sense of unease. He knew that their affair was a ticking time bomb waiting to unleash its fury on his life. As the days went by, the tension between Alex and Rachel continued to build. She was growing more and more frustrated with his distant behavior, and he was finding it increasingly difficult to keep up the charade. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the silence between them was becoming deafening. It was on one such tense evening that the storm finally broke. Rachel had been going through Alex's phone, and she had discovered the incriminating messages from Victoria. The revelation hit her like a ton of bricks, leaving her reeling in shock and anger. The confrontation that followed was explosive, with both parties saying things they would later regret. The argument ended with Alex storming out of the house, leaving Rachel shattered and heartbroken. He made his way to Victoria's house, seeking solace in her arms. But as he arrived, he was met with a surprise. Mr. Thompson, Victoria's husband, was waiting for him, his face twisted in a mixture of anger and betrayal. The scene that unfolded was one of raw emotion and violence. Mr. Thompson, fueled by rage and a sense of betrayal, attacked Alex, beating him to a pulp. Victoria, caught in the middle, tried to intervene, but her efforts only seemed to enrage her husband further. The fight spilled out into the street, drawing the attention of passers-by. The police were called, and soon the area was swarming. With officers, as the dust settled, Alex was left lying on the ground, his body battered and bruised. Victoria was nowhere to be seen, having slipped away unnoticed in the chaos. Mr. Thompson was arrested, his face etched with a mix of anger and despair. The aftermath of the incident was chaotic. Alex was rushed to the hospital, where he was treated. For his injuries, Rachel, upon hearing the news, was torn between her anger and her concern for her husband. She visited him in the hospital, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and confusion. As Alex lay in the hospital bed, he was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. The affair, which had once seemed so exciting and alluring, had led to a bloodbath. He realized that his desire for Victoria had blinded him to the damage he was causing. The guilt and shame were overwhelming, and for the first time he began to understand the true extent of his betrayal. The days that followed were a blur of police investigations, media scrutiny, and family fallout. The incident had become a sensational news story, with the details of Alex's affair and the subsequent violence making headlines. Rachel was torn between standing by her husband and condemning his actions. Emily, their young daughter, was confused and scared, sensing the tension between her parents as the investigation unfolded. The truth began to emerge. Mr. Thompson, it turned out, had been suspicious of his wife's infidelity for some time. He had been gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The confrontation with Alex had been a culmination of his anger and hurt. In the end, justice was served. Mr. Thompson was charged with assault, and Alex was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. Victoria, who had been at the center of the storm, disappeared from the scene, her fate unknown. As for Alex and Rachel, they were left to navigate the complex web of their emotions. They realized that their marriage was on the brink of collapse, but they also knew that they had to try to rebuild. The journey ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to confront their issues and work towards healing. The story of Alex's affair and the subsequent bloodbath served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the destructive power of desire and betrayal. It highlighted the complexities of human relationships and the devastating consequences of allowing temptation to cloud one's judgment. As the dust settled, Alex and Rachel were left to ponder the fragility of trust and the weight of their decisions forever changed by the events that had transpired.